Hello, good afternoon. It is 3:03 p.m. It is July 18th, Friday afternoon. I decided to come on here and make a video. Now, I was working on my video, the one that I was talking about, wrapping it up. Okay, and so the only thing I have to add is I'm talking about the services that I am offering while I am here in the Bakersfield area. Now, I think I want to summarize this really quick. Everybody knows I'm a targeted individual, and the reason why I created my website, or I should say, I'm creating my website, is because I've had issues with job boards and everything else with the ghost ads, fake ads, avoiding additional forms of trauma because I was dealing with trafficking networks as well as people who were offshoots of the trafficking network, just people who thought it was okay to sit here and do that kind of stuff. Okay, I think it was mainly because I was targeted because I had differences with them relating to certain lifestyle choices. Okay, like the message I'm getting right now is I know that people were talking about the way I dress, and they were also mentioning the fact that they were not approving of me partaking of things like marijuana. Actually going out of their way to follow me to see, what I was doing, what I buy, all the things that they should not be doing that relate to human trafficking, and just basically admitting that they were monitoring me in a way that was absolutely ridiculous. Mind you, I know that I have been well known to people pretty much all my life without me really knowing it, because I'm just now finding out about the legend that I have of the 1960s, and then me and my father being this pair that apparently follow each other, through the ethers, through lifetimes. Okay, so I'm understanding that now. I did not understand that in the first place, but yeah, I mean these issues, I understand. I mean, I understand that I'm in a community that has been working against me. Okay, so but I also acknowledge the fact that I am deserving of justice. Okay, and I had mentioned that I had addressed the president as well as the churches, which is where they got all of this nonsense, and it fueled their mind with trying to attack me. And I am basically, and the message I'm getting right now is because they are fearful of my God-given powers. Okay, like I said, if you don't mess with me, I'm not messing with anyone. Okay, I understand that this has been a very big issue here in this community with people normalizing this kind of abuse. Not just to me. I mean, I have read in certain articles about Kern County's problem with human trafficking. Okay, but I would say that what these people were doing was just, and I understand the time and the effort and the energy that this particular community has put into targeting me. Basically, a lot of people who didn't really have a whole lot in common. This relates to just religion, people in general. People got together, okay, to get rid of me. Okay, so it's like, how all these people who had different belief systems and all this other stuff, or even political issues or whatever, everybody got together to sit here and get rid of me. And what these people did was wrong. I deserve compensation, which I am not going to get just outright, even though I deserve to have outright compensation, meaning I should have been able to go to a lawyer and sue every single last one of these companies. Okay. But that did not happen because these people were influenced and heavily a part of the gang stalking, which is also human trafficking. Which, of course, when you dig down the rabbit hole, we're talking about other people relating to celebrities and all of this other stuff that I had absolutely no idea of, and I had to seriously do a lot of investigating, a lot of memory recall, as well as a lot of intuitive meditations, and looking for information. Okay, and some of the information, like I said, me coming to realize that I was Prince Alamehu and all this other crazy stuff. Woo, it's a lot. Okay, and then coming to find out about my 1960s um, presence, and then my father also having a presence as well. So, and all of this was going around me, and I was not even really aware of it, and I'm now becoming aware of it. A lot of it was very, very, very disturbing. Now, the message I'm getting right now is people are focusing on my leadership. I think there's a lot of people who are in fear of maybe their life, or they feel like I'm going to. If I'm going to tell you what, if you didn't have any issues with me, and which I'm going to tell you, and most people in this community were active participants in the human trafficking, whether that be a store clerk, whether it be a neighbor, whatever, okay? But if people, some people were more enthusiastic than others. They did the groundwork, okay? Where it was some of these people in the community were just like, okay, well, I think she's a bad person because of all the rumors and everything else. Well, I can't tell you. Obviously, it's not true. Okay, I'm somebody who did not deserve to be a victim of human trafficking. I did not deserve to be any of that. Okay, I also get the messages that this community has exploited me by putting me out for some sort of visualization relating to people in the around the world can see me. Okay, I don't know how they see me. I think it was like during the time where my house was under surveillance and all this other stuff. It's been at various times. Okay, what I do know is that they have exploited me and tried to make me look like I was a bad person. The community seems to be interested in me talking about the issue relating to soul transition, as I talked about me being a clone, coming to that realization. And I also talked about, things like astral projection, as well as the cloning process and why it is not necessary, the original intention of why people made clones, as well as how the church became involved in it. Okay, now this is, like I said, and I think this issue before I even came to this realization of talking about the clones and how the history of it and why this issue specifically affected my life, okay? These people were still, a Bakersfield community was still kind of exploiting me, okay? And the issue is because I was a woman by myself, and I had also they were attacking, like I had mentioned before, things relating to my personal choices, such as my clothes and stuff like that, which I find, and I'm no offense to the Bakersfield community, okay? No offense to the Bakersfield community. Like I said, I remember when I was living in the Antelope Valley before I came to the Bakersfield area, I've had white people, okay? White people told me you do not want to step into Bakersfield because they had told me that these people were extremely ignorant. And I'm not trying to offend anyone, okay? But just by bringing up these issues, okay, like I had mentioned, I had worked in certain companies where girls showed up in in like sweatpants and tennis shoes and stuff like that. So I understood, I was not around a lot of very cultured or cultivated people, and I always tried to be very polite. And I think that some people, because they might have some sort of religious, a lot of people use religion to hide their fact or that they're disappointed with life. Okay, and I think a lot of religions do, drain people's energy. Basically trying to promote, people not going after their dreams or trying to keep people in a very submissive position. Like in this, when I talk about the issue of the workplace, where you're supposed to sacrifice everything that you have in order to work a job that is not bringing you any personal fulfillment. Okay, so this is the mindset of a lot of people. Okay, and it's unfortunate that people have that. Okay, but legally and everything else, and when I think about being an American citizen, we are allowed to step outside that box, meaning like without penalty. So I have the right to have my own religion. If my clothes were illegal or there was some sort of bar on it, okay, I would probably have to be over the age. They would make it so that you'd have to be over the age of 18 to purchase them. Okay, so I'm not doing anything wrong. Okay, but I do believe that this community is highly religious, or at least was one at one time. Okay, very highly religious and highly indoctrinated with certain belief systems. That's your choice to believe it, and I have the right to believe mine. Okay, I do also know before I even come to realize all of this, people knew I must have been CB Braganza, and the reason why I say that, like I just recently found out in 2023 about how cool CB Braganza was. Okay, but they knew him, and but the view of them of CB Braganza was that he was somebody who was an associated promoter and developer of the New Thought movement, which a lot of people, like I just forgot the name of this person yesterday, but now I remember the name, Ernest Holmes. Steve Murray went to a church that was called the Science of Mind, who the founder is called, his name is Ernest Holmes. And I remember when talking to Steve Murray and talking to him about Steve Murray told me that he went to this particular church, and I said, oh yeah, I know who he is, that's Ernest Holmes. Why would I know who Ernest Holmes is? He must have pissed me off in my past life. Because it was okay for Ernest Holmes to establish a church and never get blacklisted, shadow banned, and disrespected, but everybody wanted to dump that, take this information from CB Braganza and commercialize it, but then CB Braganza is sitting here with absolutely nothing. So I'm telling you, it's like, okay, I feel as though, I know I've been attacked by several different people. I've been attacked by, community in itself, gathering together to plot against me. And they thought very lowly of me, mainly because there was a lot of people gathering around. There was a lot of people gathering around, like on certain days. I would say the hate campaign against me was a 24-hour, 24 hour, 7 days a week type activity. But I do recall during like 2014 and 2015 where I could literally feel it in my body. It was like I was the center of attention of a hate crime, and I could feel it. I could hear it, and I could hear like audio. Like it felt like people were walking and talking and that sort of stuff. So I understood that there was a lot of negative stuff, and I had done absolutely nothing to deserve it. Absolutely nothing to deserve, okay? And the messages I'm getting right now is that people have viewed me as somebody famous and a very high level person, that some people even think that I'm higher than a lot of worldly authorities. Okay, now I think that I like I said, there's certain things that I have that I'm like, weirded about, kind of weird. Okay, I'm not like, whoa, that's kind of trippy. Okay, and I had no idea about my history. Okay, until just recently, in the last few years. Okay, so I'm coming to understand that. Okay, and I think a lot of people um, here in the community resented me because of me being a black woman, and because of them being fed a belief system, as well as not being properly educated. And a lot of it's not, even if they did, okay, there's a lot of white people who know good and well that Egyptians are advanced people, but they feel threatened by it. They feel threatened by it because they think, because they're always projecting. Because if they had the power, they would be walking all over people. They would be doing things to, bully them, because this is what they would do, okay? And I'm sitting here, didn't bother anybody, and the only reason why people ended up dying is because they were directing this energy towards me. It's a form of karma. I am extremely highly, what do you call it, spiritually guarded, okay? So when things come to me, it can become mirrored back to where it goes right back to them, okay? Yes, back in the days of King Solomon, he was a very protected person. I am protected now. C.B. Braganza obviously lived in his 90s. He ended up having to take himself out because this dude was hardwired to continue on, okay? I am in no threat to anybody until somebody tries to threaten my life or somebody that I care about, okay? If you are somebody I care about, then I'm going to constantly be focused on your protection. Like my son, okay? Like, I get sometimes very antsy if I say, Houston, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm like, why are you just okay? And deep in my mind, I'm like, why are you just okay? Like, you should be laughing, you should be having a good time. I want people that I care about to be happy all the time. You know what I mean? And if they're not, I always worry that, my son will have to deal with bullying or illogical people. I do believe that people in this community treated my son a little bit differently because he's half white, which I understand this. These people have not fooled me at all. Okay, because I understand exactly what white people do and how they like to, kind of like play the tic-tac game or whatever. But see, what their big mistake was overstepping me and indoctrinating my son and enveloping him into this system. Now, he and I have never talked about it. He would never admit it. He's been instructed to probably not admit it, okay? But I'll tell you what, you do not ever overstep those boundaries again. Okay, I have the right to have a home. I have the right to have my son was my offspring. He was probably a minor when you guys did this, okay? You need to know your place. Okay, and like I said, they're just like the white people who warned me about Bakersfield community. When white people tell you that somebody is ignorant about their own people, you need to pay attention to that. Okay, and I was just thinking, dude, this rent is going to be so cheap. I'm going to be able to live comfortably. And see, I think a lot of people, I got this intuitive message earlier. This is one of the reasons why it was prompting me to make this video, is that people see me, and they see me going places, like when I go shopping, okay? What they don't understand is that I break my shopping in increments, okay? Because I try to get out of the house as much as I can. Like today, I went to the store this morning, right? I realized I needed water, okay? And so I went to the store, and I was weird because last night I went to the Dollar Tree, which is like in the same vicinity as Walmart, kind of. It's just a little bit up the street, but I wasn't thinking about it. I really thought that I had enough water, right? So I went to the Dollar Tree yesterday, mainly just to get out of the house, okay? I know I needed some secretarial, I call it like, secretarial supplies, whether that be pen, papers. Sometimes I buy index cards, whatever. I'll go to the Dollar Tree or whatever, just mainly to get out of the house. Okay, just to get out of the house. Now, the dollar store is like, not very expensive. I would say most of my decorations, I usually get arts and craft stuff there. People think that I'm rich. Okay. Now, like I said, and it could just be the mentality of people who are kind of ignorant. Like, I have been out of work a lot. I've had my car repossessed because of these people pulling these schemes in this community. Okay. And I'm not trying to dig this up, but I'm just telling you that human trafficking is, and I would have been trafficked anyway because of the whole church thing. Okay. But I think that these people in this community enjoyed it a little bit more than they should have. Yeah, I kind of think they do. And mainly it's because of the mentality here. And that's no disrespect. I'm basically just telling the truth. Okay. So now listen, I know that religion in general, like the Christian churches that got involved in this, they do understand that they have caused me a lot. I've lost a lot in my life, and I understand that. See, a part of the group think was to always know what I was doing and to try to make sure that I failed in everything that I was going to do. Why? Because they felt as though I was a bad person, and that if I was to exceed at something, then that would say that I really did have God on my side. So they wanted to make sure that I was isolated, that I did not have any contacts, that people would turn against me, and then all of this other stuff. Okay, so this got into what do you call it? Basically genocide. Okay, is what it did. Okay, and so religion, number one, started a lot of, when I say religion, I'm talking about the churches that got together. Okay, and what they did was, number one, I think it's the way that me and my father are related. We were like originally, like, I believe that we were like some of the first people here on earth. Okay, we were like the Adam and Eve prototype or whatever, and then people kind of wrote things like this in the Bible, and then we evolved into these other people. What I suspect, okay, and I do know for sure that I am King Solomon. Okay, but anyway, me and my father were husband and wife back in the days. Okay, but obviously we came here in pairs, so we were mostly like brother and sister, and this created some sort of rumor about me and him in this in our life, as James Gordon and Maria Gordon may have had some sort of, I mean, these people to me are sick. And and the weird thing is like, I was thinking about this on the way to the dollar store yesterday. Certain alien races, because they just believe in producing a clone or an individual, they don't ever think perhaps maybe that there is a taboo in that issue. Like, I always grew up to believe, and I understand people in this community, there's some people who practice incest, and I'm not trying to say it's right or wrong, but obviously I'm not somebody who does that, and I kind of have a little bit of a ew like feeling about it. But still, it's like I've noticed that, when it comes to the cloning thing, people do not seem to understand those kind of boundaries, or the kind of like, boundary, or that, or yeah, they don't understand the kind of boundaries that certain people have about those sort of things. Okay. I don't believe that, I'm not a practicer of incest. Okay. And so they don't see anything wrong with spreading those kind of rumors, but those rumors were very damaging. Okay. But I would say that if I was incest, if I did have an incest, which I even cringe when I think about this, okay, I would say that this is a very common issue, at least in this community. So I would just come out and admit it if that was the case. Okay, and I would feel like there should not be any social repercussions if I was to do something like that. Okay, but I'm just telling you that, no, there was never. I mean, me and my dad had a serious, ideal type of father protective of his daughter, his child relationship, and there was nothing else into it. And I, of course, looked up to my father because he was somebody who made me feel safe, like he was my parent. Okay, that was it. And I've always wanted that for any kid that existed. I mean, that's the way I see things. But I was basically given a reputation that I didn't deserve. And for years and years and years and years, people believed things about me, thought, I was a bad person, thought that I was a lowlife, thought that I was, nothing, basically. And so, I am just now coming to find out what was all of this. Like, why is it that I had such a hard time in school? Why did I have issues in the workplace? Why would even somebody want to jump up and say something or think about me in a certain way or look at me in a certain way when I might just walk into a room. Like, I remember I used to go to places in Tehachapi and people would come in and look at me like they had seen me before. Now, don't get me wrong. I grew up in Lancaster, so trips to Tehachapi were quite frequent, to be honest with you. Like, my dad used to take us out there, and then in the 90s I used to go out there. But like, I did never had anybody that I could call or knew in Tehachapi. I would just be there like on a trip. Like we would go see like, you know, maybe I don't know, like a little metaphysical store or something that was located there. But I would walk into places and people would look at me like they knew who I was. Okay, and the reason why I'm coming to understand is because this was all church related. It was all church related, right? And the fact is, it came from my bloodline. Long story, I've done like past life readings on it. I meditated on it. I figured it out. I've also made, you know, what really made me figure it out are the things that people used to say to me. Okay, like I would just dismiss it at the time. Like, you know, I talked about this lady I knew who worked with me at Edwards Air Force Base, and she said, you know, because people would just like bring up conversations out of the blue. Okay, because it was their way of saying, because you know what, the thing is, people can never tell you because they take these oaths in the church. Okay, and I'm going to tell you what, I'm just letting you know, anything that's covert is crooked. I'm just going to tell you that right now. If it's, I mean, there are certain things that, like for example, if I was a manager, I would have to sometimes meet with people in the higher up positions. Okay, this is an example. Okay, because you can't just reveal certain plans. Okay, out to like the general public or whatever, because people might, you know, mistake it for something else or whatever. So you have to be very strategic. I fully understand that. Okay, but when you are singling out an individual for harassment, for bullying, for exclusion, and all this other stuff, I'm going to tell you right now, you are dealing with something that is not normal, and it's probably against the law. Okay, it's probably against the law. So I come to find out that I've been on this blacklist created by Christian groups. And the reason why is because they do not agree with my lifestyle. Okay, I don't recall being on any of these people's registers. I'm not a, you know, member of LDS. I'm not a member of the Baptist Church. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. I never officially became a Jehovah's Witness. I studied for many years, never became a Jehovah's Witness. So it's like I feel as though, and given the fact that targeted individuals are such a large number, I'm assuming that they're doing this to a lot of people. Okay, and this is what I'm talking about. You know, it should never happen anywhere. Okay, it should never happen anywhere. But it's the fact that it happened here in the United States of America. You know what I mean? And then we had people thinking it was okay and participating in it, and it's just it's a nightmare. Okay, so anyway, um, I do get the intuitive message that a lot of people, I mean, people in the United States, they support my human trafficking initiative, and I think that people, I haven't seen it. Well, I have actually seen a little bit of it. I've been seeing articles about, you know, rings getting busted and stuff like that. Okay, I think that's wonderful. Okay, now I talked about me making a video called Human Targets. It has not made any sales yet. Okay, and I am making it in a website, and I'm adding that on there. Okay, and I know that it's always some sort of bullshit protest as to why we can't buy from Maria. I know these Christian people have done just about everything to destroy me. Okay, but let me tell you why my version of, okay, I do understand that California is starting to, in certain industries, are starting to make human targeting human trafficking training, you know, a lesson. Okay, I don't know if it's like is mandatory or deep or, you know, important. Do they view it as important as sexual harassment training? I don't know. Okay, but I do have heard what I've heard about it. Okay, now what makes my training a little bit different is I'm going into specific details, like in certain things. Okay, like I understand they talk about arranged marriages. Okay, and that's one of the tactics that they use, or the reasons why they'll target you. I talk about what else do I talk about? That's a little bit more specific, going into a little bit more detail. And of course, at the end of it, I talk about my personal experience. Okay, so you can look at it as a form of entertainment for you and your team, or you can also look at it as an additional form of training. It is not mandatory, but it is something that I feel as though is probably going to explain human trafficking possibly more than maybe what you're required to watch. Now, I would say that uh, the reason why I'm making it is because it is a fundraiser, okay? But I also feel very deeply committed to this cause, okay? Because human trafficking has been normalized for too long. Many people have suffered, okay? And I'm saying that, you know, a lot of human targets, I believe, could possibly be clones. I know that there's a lot in the industry, okay? And like I mentioned, you know, I talked to some of these celebrities, and from the moment I talked to them, I knew something was not right. I knew something was not right. Just the way that they describe and talk about things that relate to money. You know what I mean? And I kept thinking, okay, these people have handlers or there's somebody over them, and they have probably been kept ignorant their entire life, okay? Because I understand these things. Okay, I understand these things. Okay, so I understand, that a lot of times, people do not, because people are in positions of power or positions like management position or whatever, those kind of things get acted out in businesses all the time, and people do not notice it. Okay, but anytime I want to talk about people who get placed in isolation, the signs of human trafficking. Now, I understand, like, in the last few, I would say, few years, okay, especially since I left Murray Family Farms, okay, and I actually mentioned this in my newsletter about how I had noticed that, the standard type discriminatory posters were not posted up in places of business. Usually if a person works at HR desk, or they might even post it in the break room or something, I was not seeing these posters, okay? But I was just paying quiet and observing what was actually going around me, because I had noticed something was kind of closing it, right? Um, so why I'm a little leery of training that is most likely going to be produced by the same group of people. Okay, just like, I'm sure when they talk about I remember being trained for sexual harassment, but I'm trying to remember at what angle they were talking about this. Okay, because obviously what happened, what I mentioned about Siobhan Gonzalez and all these other people, this is a violation that is just outright shocking. It is outright shocking. So it's like, okay, things have become normalized in speech, in verbal discussions outside of the workplace, okay? Like, for example, this whole thing about kingdom spouses and stuff like that. If you really think about it, that right there is like a red flag that something's going on relating to human trafficking. But people were normalizing it. People were normalizing. And I was going to reference an article that I had read online about the normalization of these people forging these like corporate type marriages. Okay, I was going to reference that. Okay, but I was already in, like, I think my newsletter was already 30 pages. Okay, I was like, Maria, you just need to stop it because I have other things to do. Okay, like try to build a company, right? So I don't really have time for that. But the way this man was talking about corporate marriages and talking about how more valuable people are as couples, right, made me understand that there's something deep about this merging. I'm not going to go too deep into it. All I'm going to say is that, the human trafficking mandatory videos that may be being shown as training in California, okay, could be kind of like half-assed, meaning like, we're going to talk about it a little bit, but we're not going to delve into too much of it, okay? And see, just like the sexual harassment training, that to me proves ineffective, because obviously I got more than my share of sexual harassment just because I coordinate my clothes. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that it would be, I would say that my version of human trafficking training would probably be better. And this is not me trying to say it out of form of competition. I'm basically saying that we need to acknowledge the fact that for a very long time, we have not, when it comes to training, and also when it comes to workplace training, as well as in the schooling system, we're not really getting a full glimpse of our rights and how things are supposed to be. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I feel as though my version is better. Okay, it is $100 to actually view the video. Okay, and right now, like I said, I'm posting it on my website to see. It is more a donation than anything else. The video is 2 hours and 37 minutes long. Okay, and like I said, I do go into my story at the end of it. And yeah, I think it's a good topic of discussion, and I'm hoping that people will pay attention, because when you are a victim of human trafficking, you are all alone. You have no support, and people are willing to be extremely cruel and okay, so my camera cut off, and the reason why I cut it off is because I have a used computer. See, and people always say, "Oh, Maria act like she's rich, or she's rich." And no, I have a used computer, okay, and it's telling me I need to free up some space, okay. So obviously, and it's an old computer, okay. So yeah, I don't have everything. I think that's ridiculous. But anyway, So I'm glad that people are starting to see, the importance of understanding what human trafficking is and how it can be played out in front of your face, or you can be an active participant and not even really realize how deep the rabbit hole goes. So yes, I hope that you guys will support me on my on the sale of that video. Also, there are a lot of people in the community that I get the sense that they are nervous because of me being an occultist. Like I said, I am not harming anybody. I have no interest in harming anyone. Now, the people who I recall who were badgering me, who were causing me problems, who were being extremely cruel and insensitive, okay, because of their brainwashing and just being, their evil selves, I don't feel sorry for them at all. No, I don't. You know what I mean? Especially when you think about somebody, like people who killed my father. To me, that this campaign, their head campaign, the church to me killed my father through their orchestration of the bullying campaigns as well as a medical system and everything else. And I understand that I didn't watch this video because I did watch some videos today, and I was trying to avoid any chosen one type videos. Okay, I was just bored and really needed to change up the subject. I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole one more time. Like I didn't want to talk about work issues. I didn't want to talk about any of that stuff. Okay, so I was really just looking for BS. Okay. So I was looking at some videos. Some of it was talking about other unrelated topics. Okay, but I did fall apart on one. Okay, I heard a little bit of it. It was about people in the community feeling uncomfortable around me, and the ones who feel uncomfortable around me are the ones who are guilty. Okay, because they're either guilty or they might be a little racist or whatever. But no, I mean I gave people what they deserved. Okay, I was glad that when Steve Murray got wiped off the face of the earth, he deserved it. He deserved it, and Rex Laverne deserved it. Selena Bruce deserved it. These people were happy to destroy people's lives. Okay, they wanted to compete. They wanted to, put me in compromising positions. And mind you, I had no idea of any of this. I had no idea when me and Steve Murray used to sit here and have these issues. Like I had no idea I was CB Braganza. And how dare he sit here attack me for my religious beliefs when he's going to churches that are my ripoff. These people rip me off, and he's sitting here, eating all this information that I created. You know what I mean? I find it also very offensive. You know what I mean? But when you're dealing with racism or people who are trying to one up you, okay, none of their stuff really makes a lot of sense other than that they're evil. Anyway. But yeah, me as an occultist, as today, as well as who I was in Secret Braganza, I was in no way ever trying to discard anything biblical or anything like that. I just realized the new thought is because at that time things had changed. It was no longer the days of Solomon. I was probably seeing things from my point of view at that time. And yes, I am from the old school. I have always saw things in alchemic measure, meaning like putting things together so you can create some sort of outcome. Apparently, God doesn't have a problem with that. Okay. Now, like I said, there's always sort of this dualistic issue when it comes to the occult, but at the same time, and in the underlying foundation, the people who created this whole thing about clones were all about the occult. Okay, this is one of the reasons why they enjoy being so participating in it and having a hand in it, because they too saw the supernatural element of it. It is impressive. I gave my acknowledgement of like my what do you call it? My kudos or whatever to the Nazi people who were a part of this. Okay, it is, and I'm like saying, even though it was used for evil, that doesn't mean that it can't be used for something positive in the future. I'm just saying is that I know what hypocrisy is. Okay, and I understand that having special spiritual gifts is an indication of God's favor. Okay, and this is not me like rubbing it in people's faces or anything like that. It's just that obviously this was a you know offshoot of one of their serious mind control programs that they have conducted throughout the years. Okay, and I talked about Operation Paperclip. I talked about MK Ultra. People have, even going back to like the 1930s, as far as I can remember. Okay, my mom used to tell me stories as well as my father in the 1930s. People have always talked about the underground, people that do weird, shady things and whatever. You know what I mean? So I understand that these groups have been working in the shadows for years, okay? And they just took advantage of their affiliations with the church. Now, okay, what else? Yes, I am the face of the New Earth movement. I mean, the New Earth workplace. And I got this based on the information that I got from my Bible studies when I was younger, okay? And like I said, I understand all these reset things, okay? I talked about resets throughout the years and stuff like that. And of course, people have projected the idea of believing that there was going to be a new Earth, okay? Which I think is funny. But anyway, yeah, there's supposed to be a new Earth. I know the Jehovah's Witnesses believe in the new Earth, which they call the new system. They call it the new system, okay? Talking about how we're living in paradise on Earth, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And I don't really see that possible in any other way than through cloning. And I do understand, I get the intuitive message that yes, these people back in the days knew who C.B. Berganza was. They knew who he was, okay? So they knew that he was a part of the cloning system, so they thought that this was something that was great. Now, you will never see any reference to cloning in any of the Watchtower Tract Society information at all. You're not going to see it in their wake. You're not going to see it in their Watchtower. You're not going to see it in the cute little colorful books that they publish, okay? But there's the only way that you're going to be able to live forever is if you are indeed a clone. Okay, so that is an option. It's an option, okay? But I do believe that most immortals, they get to a certain age, like even C.B. Berganza has a croak out at some point, okay? But for the idea of what the Jehovah's Witnesses were highlighting was the fact that people would not grow old. And see, I would think that, most people look at, some people always said the 30s, okay? If you're like reach 30, you're kind of old, okay? Because that's when, a lot of people start showing it. Now, I know people say that I look young, but most people want to get to about their 30s, and then they want to start all over again. So I'm assuming it would be kind of like that movie, Logan's Run. Logan's Run, where they go into that renew thing. What did they used to call it? The carousel or whatever. Okay, not quite that dramatic, but you know what I mean. They reach a certain age so they can renew. Okay, unfortunately, in Logan's Run, they were fooled. They didn't actually renew. But I'm saying is that it would probably be the age. Okay, that would be the ideal age to kind of start all over again. Okay, but I'm not really focusing on the cloning thing. I'm focusing on bringing a better way of life to people, a better quality of life, okay? And I understand that we spend most of our time in the workplace, and I also have for many years, have studied the workplace. Now, I understand that I talk about psychology and law, but when you really think about how I studied the workplace, that's actually more of a form of like sociology, okay? And I was writing something that I was thinking about putting into my next newsletter, but I'm going to read it really quick, okay? Because I wanted to talk about, because I don't want to sit here and talk about psychology and law and sociology, but what I wanted to do is let people understand what the difference was of sociology and psychology. They're kind of similar, but I'm going to read what I wrote. Okay, so psychology focuses on individual behavior and mental processes, while sociology examines social structures, relationships, and institutions within society. Okay, both fields aim to understand human behavior, but from different perspectives. Although the two disciplines are considered separate, they converge in exploring how social structures, relationships, and institutions influence our behavior. Individuals who identify with these structures often adapt a certain mindset, which, if left unchecked, can lead to negative psychological outcomes. This is evident in cases of religious or Christian bullying where institutions involved is the church. Okay, so yeah, there is a little bit of sociology into the work that I do, okay, as an occupational engineer. But when it comes to dealing with the situation at hand, while you're at work, I'm talking about behaving in an ethical manner, being able to, greet people properly without trying to alienate people. I understand being a victim of human trafficking and how uncomfortable really it was for me to work into these places while other people normalized their cruelty. Like the isolating or the let's not talk to her. Now, I understand. I don't need to go to lunch with you. And by the way, I do not want to go to lunch with any of these people ever. Okay, I will not go to lunch with you. I will not sit down and have a meal with you. I'm not doing any of that. I'm working for you. That's it. Okay, because it's been extremely uncomfortable for me to have to even be in this community. So I'm there to work and whatever. Okay, but it's the fact that these people act in such a manner and they think that this is okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. Okay. So I would never behave in that sort of manner. I know how to conduct myself. I know how to, when I'm communicating to people, I don't care if you're black, white, or whatever, I'm going to look at you in your eye and I'm going to communicate, effectively. That's how you work. Okay. And this is one of the reasons why I know there's a lot of people who do not belong in management. I know that there's not. Okay. But anyway, the thing is that I understand what true professionalism is, and I understand what team building is. Okay, so um, anyway, when it comes to a lot of the oppressive things that go on in the current workforce, I had talked about, the bullying, them acting as if you need to sacrifice your entire life, the family entanglement, the forced marriages, the gossip, the blacklisting, the mobbing, the shadow banning, the all of this sort of stuff. I want to work in a certain way. And if I grow in my company in the future, I want to work with people who are highly motivated, highly driven people. I am looking for a certain people to work with. Now, I don't mind working for companies here while I'm trying to make money to get back home. But, I'm saying when I get back to Lancaster, I would like to have more of a defined uh, purpose, meaning because that would be my home. I'm hoping I could find a little place in Lancaster and then work my, perform my work and then have something long term. Like right here, I'm just here temporarily, okay? But if I go when I go back to Lancaster, I want it to be long term. And so I'm looking for people who are seriously business minded instead of like, kind of just, dealing with the same stuff, okay? The childish management, people ignoring, your accomplishments on purpose. I don't need to get my ego fed, okay? But like for example, how Rex Laverne was constantly trying to force me into acknowledging what he deemed worthy for me, which was an office clerk. I'm glad that motherfucker's dead. I'm glad he's dead because number one, you're going to sit here and do all of this sort of stuff to me. You're going to steal from me. You're going to do all of these things, okay? Gossip about me, blacklist me, everything else, and then you're going to sit here and try to slap me in the face with some sort of thing that you look at as demeaning. Okay, that man deserved every bit of his death, as well as everyone else underneath him. No, I do not feel sorry for him. And no, I usually don't get petty about work-related things. It's just the magnitude of all the other injustices. Okay, and this is why. You know what I mean? And I think that I had mentioned this before. Like when people get messed with in the workplace, I take this very seriously. Okay, we know what a job does. It keeps your roof over your head. It keeps your mouth fed. It keeps your, being able to have a car and all these other things. These people deliberately kept me out of the workplace to reduce my quality of living. Okay, and they really thought that they were righteous to do it. Why? Because they believed in the church. They were ignorant. They were constantly telling me how uneducated I was. Meanwhile, they were violating, our First Amendment. They were completely unaware that there probably was a First Amendment. These people were like a complete and utter nightmare. So yeah, I'm like, everything I have had to experience, I'm flipping it around. You know what I mean? And I want to work in a better way, and create a better environment. Okay, so these are the sort of things I'm interested in doing. So yes, I am the face of the new workplace. Okay, ethical. I believe that psychology and law should, not just, reign over the workplace. I think it should be reign throughout society. My personal opinion. Okay, and I'm never somebody. I remember, back in the days where people used to want me to talk about my politics. That is my politics. This is how I live my life. This is one of the reasons why I've stayed out of trouble, okay? This is one of the reasons why I can hold my head up high and sit here and tell people what they did wrong. Meanwhile, I'm unscathed. Okay, the message I'm getting right now is that people are happy that I talked about the dangers of isolation. Yes, managers who isolate their employees are not skilled managers. They're not skilled managers. Okay. As a matter of fact, when you think about the psychological damages, this is what I'm trying to encourage people to do. Okay. And, as I get more involved into things like the moral reset, because I'm kind of taking a break from right now. I have to build my website. Okay. But, what I'm trying to do is I want people to understand not just their rights, but call people out when you start getting treated like dirt. Okay, so when you see somebody sitting here, isolating somebody, if you're like, let's say for example, you're talking to the manager, and the manager, they always get boastful. They get so boastful about the kind of tactics that they enact on somebody. Like, yeah, I'm just going to put him off to the side. He's such a jerk. He's wearing like his shirt and his shoes match, so fuck him. That's their attitude, because they literally take offense to when they see somebody who's acting right or whatever, or they feel threatened because this person might be, somebody who works underneath him, but yet he's presenting himself to be more professional than the manager themselves, okay? So because he feels inadequate, he's going to sit here and bully this person, and they always feel like they need an audience when they bully somebody. So let's just say, for example, the manager's talking to the assistant manager about how proud he is that he's isolating this person, and he's also instructing all his employees to not talk to so-and-so, okay? So then the assistant manager could say, did you understand that, he could end up experiencing psychological problems that could be lifelong, all because of you are putting him in this position, and go into the, the negative effects of why does he feel as though it's necessary to scar somebody that possibly lifelong for the rest of their life just because of whatever. There's nothing in the workplace that somebody can do that would warrant that. If they were doing something that was that much of a violation, they should be terminated, right? So I'm basically saying is call out these things, okay? Call them out. And I got into it a message. I had talked about, looking at people like dual affiliations and all these other issues. And I've been getting into it in messages that people have been turning people in, and good. You know what I mean? Because I'll tell you what, I would never treat someone like that. Okay, and anybody who acts this way, I mean, that goes for people who think it's okay to isolate other people who think it's okay to, I know, I used to see some managers get so excited about how they were going to call everybody in this town and then to blacklist one of their employees. I remember working for this one particular company. I'm not going to mention their name, okay? But this woman was so happy that somebody called to verify an ex-employee's employment, and she was so happy to sit there and bury them. She was so happy to sit here and say, don't ever hire them, and blah, 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 blah. And mind you, I don't ever recall seeing this girl do anything to this person, okay? I understood that this woman she was a Hispanic woman and she was dating a black guy. That's the only thing that I remember, okay? So I kind of got the feeling that this woman was just doing that because she had her racist issues. See, the thing is, people have their personal beliefs, okay? But that's not supposed to overstep the workplace. Okay, there's certain people I do not like, okay? And like I said, I'm not sitting here bashing and hurting white people, okay? But there's certain kinds of people I literally do not like. And I'm not referring to white people specifically. I'm talking about personalities, attitudes, whatever. I do not like these people, okay? Just because of their crappy attitude and how they present themselves, okay? But I know how to be instructional when it comes to, having to deal with people. Meaning if I have to instruct somebody to do something or request something, I know how to do it without being obvious that I cannot stand these people. It's called professionalism, okay? Some of these people, they have an idea of, what's respectable, what's professional, and it usually their idea of what is that is some sort of bullying tactic. Okay, it is not team building. And a lot of the companies that I work for, like I'm just gonna say it right now, Rex's place. I know that there were times where he would delegate stuff, and his sons were just like not even paying attention. You know what I mean? I want to work for companies that are fully functional. Like I said, I'm 54 years old, and these people have played with my retirement for too long. I'm getting really mad when I think about it. Because, I think about, oh my gosh, back from Murray Family Farms time, and I was sitting here trying to get something stable, and I was getting, shit jobs and all this other stuff, and these people were just playing with my life. And why do they play with my life? Because they don't value you. Okay? The message I'm getting right now is that I'm going to be single for pretty much ever, and that people are going to be happy to network with me. I'm glad. You know what I mean? I don't see a whole lot of obvious signs about, me reaching out to people, especially on my last, what do you call it? My newsletter and stuff like that. So I know that people have been manning my stuff for quite a long time. Okay. And like I said, I don't appreciate it, what else? People look at me as I'm high class. I would say that I'm a cultivated person. I do have standards. Okay. But I'm not high class, meaning when I think of high class, I think of people who have extravagances, like more than one car, a beautiful home, not just a home, but all the amenities, like a pool, like a pool in the backyard and all this other stuff. I live in an apartment. Okay. My biggest thrill is going to the Dollar Tree. And when I'm trying to be upscale, I might just go to the Dollar General. Okay, I used to think that people who were upscale were the kind of people who went to department stores. Now, don't get me wrong, I went to department stores when I was younger, like, J.C. Penney's and stuff like that. But I'm talking about, like, okay, like Neiman Marcus. Okay, that used to be one of the upscale type places. Okay, I've never bought anything from Neiman Marcus. Okay, and I do understand they might have some outlets or something, and I'd be really happy to buy something from there. Okay, but I pretty much go secondhand a lot of times. I go to garage sales. You know what I mean? Yes, I do have a lot of clothes and stuff like that, but I'll tell you, a lot of these things have been accumulated over the years. It's not like I just went out and bought a big wardrobe or something. No, that took me years to accumulate. Okay. So I try to, and I would say that the things, the little knickknacks that I do buy, I'm surprised that people actually thought that that was a big deal. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've been going to the dollar store for years. Okay. In my high class, I would say I am a very refined person, but I am not somebody who has the money like people make it out to be. Okay. No, I do not. Okay. I try to make a decent wage though. You know what I mean? I think, obviously I'm somebody who should be making a decent wage. Why? Because, of my intelligence and my skills. Okay. The message I'm getting right now is that people are starting to understand my fascination with stuffed animals. I talked about that a couple of days ago. Me expressing, uh, my affection, right, to stuffed animals. And when I was looking at some pictures of, what is his name? Prince Elemehu, when he was little, he had a doll, in his hand. And, growing up, I was the same way, and I'm still that way as an adult. I have never had anybody that I fully trust. You know what I mean? And the people that they send to you in your life, they're usually people that are very shady. So I've always been pretty much to myself, you know what I mean? And I would prefer to just be around sincere people. I'm a sincere person, so I deserve, sincere people in my life. And if you have to be sincere, then I guess I'll just be hanging out with my dolls then. And I'm good with that. Anyway, people acknowledge the fact that I'm an Egyptian. And there's some people who are now accepting the fact that the Savior is Egyptian. Now, the message that I got a while ago is that people thought that because people talk, okay, and this group consisted of not just people here in Bakersfield, but people I used to know when I was growing up, okay, as well as Rex Laverne and the churches, and the people talk in like huge groups, okay. The people that I used to know growing up, they never really had any respect for me, which I can tell you they didn't, especially, dealing with the bullying that I had to deal with. And of course, back then, a lot of white people were raised to believe, that black people could not possibly be of any value or have ever contributed to anything. And this is, of course, because of the school system not really talking about those. And, whatever. I never felt as though, like, I talked about when I used to go to the barber shop or I used to go to the beauty shop and they would bring up this conversation about, the Egyptians being black and stuff like that. I remember thinking, well, that's good. But, I was seriously content with being who I was. You know what I mean? And I never thought that, I was, if I was one of those people that I would enact my superiority among people. But I've dealt with white superiority or white supremacy, and they're evil, the evil white supremacy. I've dealt with it. But yes, I'm of the Egyptian background, and the Savior has always been someone other than what they thought he looked like. You know what I mean? People always want to see themselves in whoever they idolize or respect. You know what I mean? I get it. Okay, that's one of the reasons why Saint Nick has changed to a white little chubby man, when he was actually elected. Anyway, the message I get is that people agree that, okay, I just took a picture for my website, and I understand that there was a lot of ignorant people who were trying to prevent me from excelling in my first YouTube channel because they were insisting on me, bullying me, having me forcing myself into suicide, wanting me to change my image because I was dealing with a lot of catty women. Okay. I don't appreciate it. And I did address Donald Trump about this issue as well as the churches with their illogical behavior. Like I said, and I did mention this in my newsletter, I know there's a lot of women who want to convince themselves that it's a righteous thing to be fat and lazy and unattractive, but this is not the case. And don't get me wrong, I do sympathize with you. You have been brainwashed, okay? And hopefully that you will heal one day if you do, have the nerve to, okay? But no, I am not going to let people bully me. I am going to stand up for myself. I have the right to live my life the way that I want to. And no, it was not ever in any way a form of competition. I already knew that I wanted to live a better life. Okay, like back in the '90s, I used to kind of get irritated by my associations with people who did not have the same level of lifestyle as me or my same aspirations. Right, like I used to want to either bring my own lunch or whatever, or people would try to even back then, right, would try to prevent me from living the life that I wanted, like trying to bring in food, candy, stuff like that. Okay. The reason why I knew I resented these people because I wanted people to respect my body. This is what I do not want in my body. Okay. But yet they would always think that it was funny to try to pressure people to behave or do something that they don't want to do. Okay. And the thing is that this is what I want for myself. Okay, I have special spiritual beliefs that relate to the human body, and I don't appreciate people trying to deviate my belief system. Okay, but a lot of women do this because people, feel happier and healthier and more lively when they're leaner. Okay, and a lot of these women, they look back to the time when they were younger, when they didn't feel like they hated themselves, and they miss themselves a lot. And because a lot of people have probably put this on them, I know people try to make a effort to control women's bodies. Okay, and I had talked about this in my newsletter too, about the Hitler thing, and the population control and whatever. Okay, but I can't tell people what to do. Okay, but yes, I do. And there was a lot of ignorant people that were wanting me to commit suicide, trying to block me, create problems on social media, trying to act like I was a slut and all this other stuff. Okay, like I said, that's projection. That's total projection. No, this is who I believe in. This is what I believe in. Okay, and like I said, if I was I would not choose a wife for my husband, for my son. Okay, I would not choose a wife for my son. But if I came from a culture that did, I would want my son's wife to, be somebody who takes care of themselves. Why? Because I want good offspring. You know, that's how and I want, that kind of pride to go through my entire family line. Okay, it's about leveling. I hate that expression, but it is. It's about having something to strive for. That's not the only thing you strive for, but it's the whole thing. The body, mind, spirit, everything should be balanced. Okay. Now some people are more balanced than me. Some people go to the gym. Some people do that, and I would tell you I don't. Okay, but I know that people wanted to vilify me if I did. They act like it was something bad if somebody wants to take care of your body, but it was okay for Rex Laverne to go and have a gym membership. Tell me why that is, because people were in secret competition with me, and I don't appreciate it. And I'm glad Rex is dead. Glad he's dead. Anyway, so yeah, I did take a picture of myself for my website, and the reason why I took the picture is because I'm talking about comparing myself and talking about how, in this trafficking ring, I had celebrities that were instructed to not have any kind of communication with me. And, a lot of these celebrities wear makeup themselves, okay? And not just that, but I was talking about my clothes. Now, my clothes, I would say, are rather modest, okay? Like, I don't show cleavage. If, like, right here, like, I think that's a little bit too low. So you'll notice, like, if I don't have a safety pin in my clothes, I usually keep moving my shirt up, okay? Most of the time, I either sew it, fix it myself, alter it, sew it, pin it, whatever. I usually do not. I refrain from showing cleavage, and I do not judge women who show cleavage. And God knows, I remember Selena Bruce. Okay, she sewed a lot of cleavage. Okay, and she was one of these women who were trying to attack me. Okay, and I remember going to a job interview over at a farm place, another farm place. I think it was Grimway. I think it was. The lady who was interviewing me, she was decked out in nice gold jewelry, and she was also wearing makeup. Okay, so it's like, look what you guys are doing. Okay, so stop the bullying already. Okay, what it is I have come to understand throughout the years. Okay, that it's okay to talk about how you want to improve yourself, but if you actually get there, then people want to bully you. Just like, a lot of years go by, right? And like around January 1st, people sit there and they invest in things like gym memberships. They'll buy gym memberships because they want to get fit, right? They want to get fit. They want to get back to their old selves. They want to feel lively again. So they'll go to the gym and they'll start changing what they eat. They might eat salads every day or whatever, and that's totally fine, right? But when people walk through the door and they are wearing, like, I don't know what most women look at as an ideal weight. Some people, they really want to be like a size 2 or something crazy like that. and somebody walks in the door who looks that way, or actually they saw the progression of a person getting to that size, right? Then they resent them and they want to sit here and blacklist and they want to kill them. Okay, this is barbaric behavior, and it also sends a message of, do not improve your life or we're going to kill you. And I equate this to the same thing of like people who go out and buy a new house, or they upgrade their life, or they make some sort of lifestyle improvement. This is an immature thing to do, and not only is it immature, it's illegal to do. And I'm glad that I was an example of this kind of bullying. Okay, I want people to understand that this should not be an acceptable thing. And yes, if I feel necessary, or if you feel necessary, if you're somebody who's in this situation, which I think there's a lot of women in this situation right now who have tried to live good lives, meaning like they might go for a morning walk. They might have a certain skin routine of thing that they do. They might have, they might go get their hair done or whatever. And now they are blacklisted on a death list because they take pride of themselves. And they should not have to do that. So keep pressing forward. And I hope that, my situation helps these people, because you're in the right to do what you're doing. You're supposed to do those things, okay? Like I said, it's just that people have these silent competitions. It's okay to strive to get better. And I will say there's a lot of industries that benefit from you always trying to strive to get better. Like those gym memberships, they love collecting your money. They love it every year when you try to get better. But a lot of people around you do not want you to get better. Because when you do get better, then you deal with the bullying. Okay, and I'm going to be upfront. There's a lot of people who are not stable or strong enough to live out their dreams, and it's because of these sort of people. And it's this issue that I think is somewhat divine, because this is an issue that a lot of women talk about how they're not able to reach their goals, how they're always dealing with these obstacles. And my issue is, I would say, another issue, okay, among other issues, is something that stands up and saying, you know what, this needs to stop. Because there's a lot of women, I think, that are overweight and don't want to be overweight, but because they get corralled and bullied into being overweight, this is an issue. You know what I mean? And let this issue stand for, that cause. Anyway. People I knew are amazed at who I am today. I don't know. It's funny, because I've always been this way. You know what I mean? But I know that because of their racism and them wanting to see a certain person, then this is what they saw. You know what I mean? And I also would say that they saw a very scared person. Because a lot of times when they would throw their bullying tactics at me, I was usually taken aback by it. Like, why are you bullying me? I just got here. I just started work or whatever. Why are you doing this? It would always like make me, and then I used to think, okay, am I doing something wrong? And then I would sit there and be like, try to smooth it over. I wouldn't waste my time smoothing over anything with anybody with that attitude nowadays. Because I've come to understand that this is the human nature. I mean, I always knew people were bad, but I have come, especially after dealing with this, if somebody's got a problem with me, and this is what I'm talking about, if somebody has an issue with me in the workplace, I'm just going to address it right away. I'm going to say, you know what, obviously we don't get along together, so can we keep this a work-related issue? Like, if you need something from me, I will get it to you as soon as possible. I will accommodate you as much as I possibly can. I just want to make sure that we work in a way where we won't interfere with each other. Okay, so like, let's just say, for example, there's been times where I worked in certain places and I need to hand off something to somebody. I'll put it in their basket and just keep walking. I won't even say good morning. You know what I mean? I don't need you. I don't need your approval. Okay, I don't need to play the mind games. I don't need any of that. I'm not here for that. You know what I'm here for? My means to an end. I need my money to pay my rent, and I want to pay my bills. And hopefully I'll work for a company that's somewhat enjoyable, okay? But you sitting here squawking and bitching about my clothes and gossiping to me, I could care less. Could care less, okay? And if you step over the line, okay, expect to get your head torn off in front of everybody. I may not be able to physically hurt you, but I bet I will. You best believe I'm going to verbally tear your ass apart. Anyway, I think that's about it. Oh, I did get the intuitive message that, in the past people thought that I was an arrogant person. I am not arrogant, but I will tell you what, I do have standards. Okay? And just like, if there's somebody that I feel that does not live a life that is, up to my standards, why am I going to sit here and take a step down to be around somebody who's only going to drag me down? Okay? It only makes sense to have standards, okay? I don't believe in just hanging out with anybody. Have some standards, okay? A lot of people at first thought that I was rebellious. I'm not rebellious. I'm well within my right to live my way that I want to be. I think a lot of people thought I was rebellious because my father's apparition. This is so ridiculous. My father's apparition was following, so people thought I was rebellious. I didn't even know my father's apparition was following me. Okay, like I said, I just recently found out that story. You know what I mean? But you know what our presents are here for the protection. You know why? Because I was mistreated. I was ostracized. I was bullied. I had no one to help me except for the supernatural. Okay? So if they didn't like my apparition that was following me, that's too bad because you're the one who created it. Okay? I have never been safe in this world, and neither has my father. Their hate is what killed my father. So somebody had to protect us. Okay? So we protect each other. The other message I'm getting right now is everyone knows that yeah, okay, I have a son, okay, and that some people believe that what I'm talking about brings hope, because you know a lot of people are really unhappy with their workplaces, okay, and I understand, like I talked about, how this religious program, or you know this agenda, okay, has affected a lot of people's lives. Trafficking people. There's a lot of people who are trafficked right now. A lot of women get stalked. Not just women, too. A lot of people are getting trafficked because people are nitpicking. If people have certain things that they do that they have the right to do, they are sitting here getting discriminated against and all this other stuff. So, yeah, we have this issue with dual affiliation, and it's because people are not professional. Okay? What I'm saying is to bring about the new earth is, you know, is to get rid of the old kind of management, or the old kind of work structure, and focus on the new. I can't change every work structure, but I know that I can operate within my own way. Okay? I am never going to reduce myself to behaving anything like these sort of people. Okay? And I'm hoping to, you know, team up with other professional people as we go along. Okay, the intuitive message I'm getting right now is that it's loud and clear. A lot of people do not want to hire Christians right now. Okay? And like I said, I am never going to resort to what they did. I am never going to sit here and play their sick game like they did, okay? I am not saying do not hire Christians, okay? But I'm talking about if Christians are crossing the line and performing work like being the dual affiliations, excluding other people, well, then they deserve to get fired. I don't believe people should be fired because they have a certain belief system. I would not do that, okay? That's illegal, okay? And they have the right to see God however they want to, okay? But to sit here and like... but when they're sitting here using unprofessional and discriminatory guidelines to hire people, okay, and I understand people, you know, people have their secret little whatever, okay, like maybe somebody might not hire somebody because of their race, and they're not telling you that. They're just like, oh, I just don't want that, you know, that, even though that person, you can usually tell when people are doing it because they don't want to hire you because of your race or whatever, and you can tell. Okay, especially if this person's the most qualified, the most articulate, the most whatever, and they're like, they have that look, and they're like, yeah, I'm just going to pass. And it's kind of funny, but I already know that, okay? But there are some people who, like I said, bad managers always brag. They always brag. You know, I didn't hire that black girl because I don't want her because she's black, and I just didn't want to, you know, hire her or whatever. You told on yourself. And these sort of people, they're the ones that they should be reported on. The message I'm getting right now is that my father loves me and that he enjoys being with me, and that my company is gaining a lot of attention. I haven't started my website yet, but they're talking about it because I'm bringing up issues that people usually don't talk about, but they should be talking about. But anyway, I'm glad. You know, I'm just hoping to get my website up and running as soon as possible. The only thing that I have to work on right now is I added some more pictures, some more visuals to my to my video. Okay, so I really hate looking for visuals, okay? And, you know, I really do. I hate it. I hate putting together anything visual for business-related stuff. I am not somebody who has the eye or the coordination, or I don't have any of that stuff, okay? I don't have that skill, okay? But I'm doing the best I can, and I'm doing it on my own, like I said, because when you're a targeted individual, you're dealing with a lot of crooked people. Now, my website is purchased through Wix, okay? And I don't know if Wix did this on purpose, or the person that was supposed to be assigned to assist me, you know, just did not assign a particular date to meet or whatever. I have no idea. But I will tell you, like I said a couple days ago, everything that happens, I blame it on the person. Because I've been victim of human trafficking. Okay, I'm sure just about everybody who knows who I am. So when things go wrong, I immediately assume that it has something to do with that. And I'm not offended. I'm just basically saying is that these Christian people are downright evil. Okay, so and I had mentioned they need to clear my name from every single data bank that they could possibly imagine. Hopefully, they clear the other targeted individuals. I will tell you, yes, I hope that the other targeted individuals do get cleared. Mind you, the other targeted individuals have done nothing to help me whatsoever. Okay, I know that they were part of the Christian organizations too. There was one specific person who was a targeted individual who was considered a Christian, and he was also playing the game. Okay, so just because you're a targeted individual does not mean that you're not brainwashed, that you're not going to be, whatever. Okay, but like I said, it's much like The Walking Dead, and this is how I look at it. When you're dealing with people who have been brainwashed, okay, and that's how I look at it. This is one of the reasons why I'm not breaking down like, oh, please be my friend, I'll do anything to appease you. I don't appease demons. The next message I got is that people that I knew, like I said, okay, I understand the people that I knew are interested in how I am now. Okay, I've always been this person. It's just that you're now suing me, articulate what I'm saying or what I had to deal with. Okay, and I'm now coming to understand what the game was. Like I understand, like I was a clone. Nobody told me I was a clone. Everybody blamed me for everything. They didn't understand my spirituality. They wanted to force their spirituality on me. And here, the community that I lived in Lancaster, conspired to kill my father. And that's what you guys did. So, yeah, now this is who I am right now. And I'm trying to get out of the hole that you guys all helped dig for me. So, anyway, if you could support me on my new journey, I would greatly appreciate it. I probably will never meet any of you guys again. And it's for my own mental well-being. The reason why is because I need to heal. Okay, I need to heal. This just is so weird. Like, I didn't realize that my family was fake. Now I understand why every time I would be nice to my sister, come up to my sister, try to talk to my sister would sit there and try, like, act like she didn't know me or whatever. I had no idea. I was like, why are you doing this to me? But now I get it. You know what I mean? And so everybody else just kind of like did whatever and treated me like garbage, and I had no idea why. So now I do understand why. And I really can't justify that in my mind, okay? But like I said, if you can support me, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm doing everything I can to get back on track with my life. I'm going to wrap this video up. I'm finally getting hungry. I need to eat for my mental stimulation right now because I am like extremely bored. I'm bored right now. And so I just created a new bean. Well, I just made a new bean dish. I mixed two kinds of beans together. I'm a bean person. I have like these white beans and I mixed some brown beans together. And I threw in some celery, right? Because I wanted to get rid of the celery. I will tell you that it actually tastes really good. And I'm trying to get like my brain working, you know what I mean? To get interested in things, okay? Because right now I'm very bored at home. I might go out later, you know what I mean? But see, no, I don't want to spend money, okay? I don't need to go buy anything. I just got some water this morning, But see, a lot of people who get bored, they do a lot of like impulsive spending, okay? And I don't need anything. I'm aware, I think I have everything that I need. Now, like some days from now, my refrigerator is going to get a low. I'm going to have to go back to the store. But there's no reason for me to buy anything. I just went and got index cards yesterday. I don't need anything. So I'm bored. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I am absolutely bored. I cannot tell you how freaking bored I am, okay? And like I said, putting photos together for my video can get boring, okay? Because I had a lot of slides. And so the last part I'm doing on my video, I'm talking about the services that I'm offering. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, do I want to list them and explain them? I'm probably going to list them and then explain them and then keep showing the different things that I'm listing, itemizing them on each slide, because I think that might be the fastest way to do it. Once I'm done with all of that nonsense, and the reason why I'm explaining what I'm doing is, like I said, I know that Rex Laverne would try to pretend that I didn't work in accounting for 20-something years, that I never did this before, and it was because the church was encouraging these people to not acknowledge what I did. Okay, yes, the church was telling people to isolate me, telling them to, create what do you call it, gaslighting type stuff. The church is evil, okay? And so this is what I'm bringing out to these people. I'm telling people they're no-touch torture bullshit. A lot of this is, obviously is Nazi created, but the churches were definitely trained by the Nazis. And these sort of tactics that are getting enacted in the workplace. Some of it's directly related to the Nazis. It could have been something that a person may have known is inappropriate behavior. They may be doing it on purpose, and they may have been trained through maybe some sort of nationalist organization to purposely do this to people. I don't know, okay? Whatever it is, it's bad management, okay? But a lot of these sort of things that get enacted, these sort of tactics, these sort of disciplinary, there's no need to discipline anybody or punish them for that matter, but these sort of exclusions that go on in the workplace, these sort of mind games that get on in the workplace are definitely Nazi inspired, and they need to be called out. I'm going to wrap up this video, and I'll be back with another video sometime later. Take care. Bye.